happens. I'm sure it's not going to do what it's supposed to do, but I hope it does. But that is a given. It's 5:28 in the morning in Ukraine, and I wanted to try to talk to people about good things in Ukraine instead of all the bad stuff. But before I do, I wanted to speak about the true nature of misinformation campaigns of so-called media outlets in Ukraine. It's specific to this Kiev Independent. Uh, it's appalling to watch fake narratives. Uh, I reached out to these people in good faith, wanting them to help me tell stories so we could get jobs created. And I keep trying to tell people in Ukraine something simple. They got to quit lying to the president's office. And they got to quit this misinformation campaign. And because of me being an American that lives here, I'm just a survivor like anybody else that lives in Ukraine. Most people that live in Ukraine spend more time being scared of their government or what somebody's going to do than anything else. For these guys that are wearing uniforms as a soldier, I'm watching and I'm thinking, well, these guys are doing what they believe is the right thing and they got a right to do that. But there's so many external forces here. I mean, I've watched it over 20 years and I'm like, geez, why can't they just leave people in Ukraine alone and let them do what they want? I don't know why it doesn't work that way here. It seems like people spend more time trying to tell people of Ukraine how the hell they have to do something than to do anything else. And I think it's wrong. Of course, we get the same thing we always get here. Um, Anytime you don't say something that this asshole YouTube thinks is normal, they'll start throttling you and changing your bit rates and all. I mean, you just couldn't make it up. If I go back to another stream environment, well, nobody looks at it. So we're being censored over here, and it's because of people like these so-called independent media and these so-called state-run media. It just doesn't seem very conducive to ending a conflict. Um, I think there's a remedy. I think if the people at the president's office would actually tell him what the hell is going on as far as new jobs available and new technology available and remedies to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, I think it could be solved in one day. You know, just a simple idea. It wasn't the former Soviet states' fault that the damn radio system was broken. Um, I mean, the idea that Slavic people are killing each other is just another stupid thing, in my opinion, of the U.S. Army. But you say, well, what does that mean? Soldiers that don't want to kill people? Well, that's the whole point. Humanity's been fighting for all of recorded history based on the lives of damn money changers. And there's an unlimited supply of money based on what we've accomplished in the world with the quantum computer and the ability to give people a normal life, but yet they continue to suppress the rights of people with some agenda that is not conducive to anything other than another form of money changing. You go back 9 generations and of each person that's living, and their family retains untold measurable wealth that's been stolen by fake people in government. And the idea that they're lying to the president, it drives me nuts, because the Signal Corps is like, well, wait a minute. If these guys are the commanders and you give them lousy information, how in the hell is anybody ever going to do information shouldn't be used as a weapon. So these fake intelligence agencies, they don't like me at all. They don't really care at this point. What they care about simple things. Can people buy and sell without being abused? I've never seen that over here. I wish it was true. That it could, but I've never seen that. You can't do anything over here without pissing off an unethical person that don't even live here. And I think there's a remedy to it. I think if Ukraine would just stand up and embrace what they've already agreed to do internally and forget all these stupid ideas of killing each other. I mean, the Budapest Memorandum is real. The Americans and the Russians breached that agreement, and these land grabs are just stupid. But at the same time, to not acknowledge the rights of the Russian people here is just even more stupid. We're human beings first. I mean, it's funny, you go back and you look at my own history here. I came here 20 years ago only to learn a couple of years ago that my family had already been here long before I even knew anything about it. And if you do your own research in your own family, you'll find out there ain't no such thing as an American or a Russian or a Ukrainian or something like that. We're human beings and we're part of a melting pot. There's a simple solution. The right to clean water, the right to clean food, the right to a roof over your head, and the right to travel unmolested should be a universal declaration of rights. These perverted people that run these so-called global organizations for global governments. I mean, all politics are local. Yeah. But it's disgusting to see military officers that they'll lie on the radio for money, and everybody wants to tell a lie to get paid. And it's like, well, what the hell are you lying for? Just tell the truth. You know? The truth doesn't care what a human being thinks. It's still going to be the truth. So anyway, in simple terms, I'm just trying to make sense of the world I live in like anybody else. I don't see any common sense prevailing. I think the people that are the underlings for the executive office of these countries, I think they need their ass whooped, is what I think. That's from a military perspective. I think the military commanders need to walk into the door of the executive office and say, you know what, you need to shut your stupid lying ass up and stop lying to the damn president. You can't say that. I mean, hell, how in the hell can you judge somebody who ain't never done their job? I mean, my God. Can you imagine giving everybody everything forever? That's what leaders of country have a job to do. I mean, you explain to me how the hell you're going to give everybody everything they want forever on a broken radio based on fake history. It's going to always be conducive to conflict. So what we've tried to do over here in Ukraine is what the data says, and of course we don't really think it's anything other than the truth. Stand on the record. The world turned its back on this place, and now they're trying to rip it apart because it did. I think those people that are lying to Mr. Putin, or lying to Zelensky, or lying to the executive branch over there in America, I think they need their ass whooped, every damn one of them. But that's a military perspective, and does military have a right to say to people that wear the uniform you have to tell the truth? I mean, the idea that I was listening to clowns that represent the U.S. flag talking about they get paid to lie. Well, what a joke. You know? That's not what it means to be a soldier. Soldiers are supposed to be examples. Well, they don't need to be heroes. The only heroes I've ever seen are in the graveyards, and there's enough graveyards in Ukraine. There's enough of them in Russia too. Of course, these are just my own personal opinions, and they don't really mean anything to anybody. But I think they should. You know, what the hell are we fighting for? A box of stuff that's overpriced. I mean, look at the infrastructure deployment around the world. And I'm not picking on Ukraine or America or anything else. I'm just looking at reality. These so-called smart people that run countries, and they're bureaucrats. They're self-serving people that don't give a damn about anybody else for their own interests. These media types, you know. I mean, imagine wanting to hire people, and you spend more time making people go away. They can't tell the truth because they can't even comply with the law of the country they're born in to even get a job. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I've been watching. People just want to lie to each other. Man against man, a woman against woman, and mother against son, and father against son, and what's the conflict? Anyway, with that as a given, I wanted to maybe try to be quiet a minute and let people see the positive side of what I think's been going on in the world. Think about the idea that you can just go and know anything. That's the power of the computer that people seem to ignore. Case in point, this wonderful website created by this guy here. And now they've stuck shopping carts in it, and I wish the boy that wrote it wouldn't do it, but the point is, that's what they've done. Is they've monetized information. It shouldn't be that way. It just shouldn't be the way that says you always have to worry about shopping carts to buy and sell. So we created this program to see what's going on there. I mean, they're tracking everything based on the need to sell data. So here, you can come here and learn everything, but you don't. You're in centralized depositories of code. The way these centralized depositories are set up, these people have set up systems that allow people to pick another human being's brain so that they can get some other gimmick to get somebody to click a button. And I think we're better than that. The idea that you can't use a machine without people knowing your keystrokes today, I think that's wrong. So what does this all got to do with talking about what we were talking about earlier? Well, this is what I'm talking about. They lie to the people in government. I mean, you think these governments actually want every keystroke that you make on a machine to be given to somebody else? I don't really think that's what a president's office stands for. I don't really think that's what all these fake government agencies stands for. I think it's a simple thing. If you remove the ability for lawmakers to have to worry about a dollar, you might actually get something done. Case in point, if you look at the infrastructure with the roads, the ability to have a road that is safe to drive on. Well, there's a lot of roads in the world, but there's a lot of people that get killed on the roads because of the bad designs. So just having random thoughts here, I guess. King of random would be what I've been of late. Well, why do we have to have centralized repositories of information controlled by people that believe that because you want to learn how to use something, you have to give somebody your ID and your bank information and all that, you know. Why the hell do you care who somebody is? I mean, this is the stuff that makes sense anymore. thoughts. It's just wrong. Anyway, to the kid that wrote this, I want to say simple things, Just be that guy. He's apparently in need of things he don't have, which is why he's trying to stick the shopping carts out there and need to attract people. But this is what it should be. If they'll continue to go in this way, I think the world would be better. I think a lot of people needs to give this guy.
So physics is a huge subject that covers many different topics, going from galaxies in the depth of space right down to subatomic particles. And if you don't already know physics, it's difficult sometimes to see how all of these different subjects are related to each other. So this is my attempt to show that in a map. So this is the map of physics. I hope you enjoy it. Physics can be broadly broken down into three main parts: classical physics, quantum physics, and relativity. We'll start with classical physics, and a good person to start with is Isaac Newton. His laws of motion describe how everything made of matter moves about, and his law of universal gravitation tied together the motion of planets in the sky with the falling of objects on Earth into one elegant and general description. He also invented calculus, a supremely powerful mathematical tool which has been used over the centuries to derive new physics. Calculus is really a part of mathematics, but physics and mathematics are inseparable. Maths is the language of physics, and you can imagine it like the bedrock that the world of physics is built from. Newton also made strides in the field of optics, which is the physics of light and how it travels through different materials. It explains refraction seen in prisms and lenses, which are used to focus light in telescopes, microscopes, and cameras. Telescopes enabled us to peer into the depths of space and observe the wild array of objects there, and developed astrophysics and cosmology. Optics is closely related to the theory of waves, which is basically how energy can travel through disturbances of a medium, like ripples on the surface of a pond or sound through the air. Light doesn't need a medium to travel through. It can travel through the vacuum of space, but it still follows the same principles as all waves, namely reflection, refraction, and diffraction. This leads us to electromagnetism, the description of magnets, electricity, or more generally, electric and magnetic fields. It was a physicist called James Clerk Maxwell who discovered that these are two aspects of the same thing and derived the wonderfully elegant rules of electromagnetism and theorized that light was an electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetism also explains all of electricity. Jumping back a little bit, classical mechanics is related to Newton's laws and covers the properties and motion of solid objects, how they move when forces hit them, and what happens when they are joined together, like in gears or in buildings or bridges. Fluid mechanics is the description of flows of liquids and gases. Using fluid mechanics, you can work out how much lift is generated from an aeroplane's wing or how aerodynamic a car is. Fluid mechanics is notoriously difficult, mostly because the motions of tiny things like molecules get really complicated really fast, which leads us to chaos theory. Chaos theory is the description of large, complex systems and how small differences in initial conditions can lead to very different final outcomes. Thermodynamics is the description of energy and how it passes from one form to another. It also includes entropy, which is a measure of order and disorder and basically tells you how useful different kinds of energy are. Energy is a fundamental property to physics, and although I've written energy here, I should have written it everywhere on this map because everything has energy. So that's all of classical physics, the picture of the universe we had around the year 1900. It told us we lived in a universe where everything ran sort of like clockwork. If you could measure everything accurately enough, the future was kind of predetermined. However, not everything was solved. There were just a few holes in experiments that hinted at something more. The orbit of Mercury was slightly too fast, and some strange things happened on the smallest scales with electrons and light, which were all unexplained. Physicists at the time thought that they'd solve and explain these problems soon enough, but poking at them, they unravelled the new domains of relativity and quantum physics and turned our understanding of the universe completely on its head. Albert Einstein was the genius who developed the theories of special and general relativity. Special relativity predicts that the speed of light is constant for all observers, which means that when you travel really fast, weird stuff starts happening, like time slowing down. It also states that energy and matter are different aspects of the same thing, through the famous formula E=mc². General relativity says that space and time are part of the same fabric, called space-time.
Okay, I wanted to pause a minute and explain why I just put that up there. In my opinion, after being alive for 58 years, it's all a lie. The truth of the universe that we live in is so much more simple. Case in point, you go in and you understand the truth. There's only 9 numbers, and with that as a given, you just look at the world through what it really is. There's only 9 numbers. If you understand the world through reality versus this hogwash that they've put out there to delay the truth of what they're actually suppressing. Case in point, if you come back and you go to octaves and you ask yourself how many octaves are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, there isn't any more. You say, well, there's 9 numbers. Yeah, it's the observed number. But anyway, and say, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. See, that's not true. If you do the math, there's only 9 numbers here. And you say, well, there's 8, but no, there's 9, because there's the person that's observing the number. Anyway, it's just a different view of the world. So, well, how do you actually explain it? Remember the music. There's a high band. And then there's a low band. And of course, it never searches the width. I mean, this is how they denote reality being perverted. I mean, if I say low band, why does it give you a reference to a guy? That's not what it means. And you go mid-band, with the point being in these observations I'm putting out here is how data is just horribly organized. You know. And of course, you know, why does mid-band got to do with 5G? I mean, so we'll go back and let this continue to play, give you stuff to think about.
And that the force of gravity comes from objects bending space-time, making other objects fall in towards them. While relativity describes the very big, other physicists were busy at work on the very small in the world of quantum physics. Atomic theory probed the nature of the atom, and more detailed descriptions of the atom were developed, from a tiny sphere to electron orbits to energy levels, and then to the electrons being
And of course, to continue on this ability to unwind this fake stuff, theoretical. Remember, the world that we live in is based on theorems, but that's not what we actually see every day. So what's the remedy to it? Well, they're giving you hints to it if you're willing to get rid of the garbage. It doesn't mean that what this guy is saying isn't legitimate to observe reality. It means something far more simple. Are you an indoctrinated person, or can you observe the world that you're in? He said, well, what does this got to do with talking about government and talking about conflict? And that is the case in point. If you understand that there's only 9 numbers, and then you understand that there's only 3 bands, it's, 3 times 9 is 27, 7, 8, and 9, there's only 9 numbers. But there's another truth based on the Trinity that we ignore. Everything exists as a liquid, a solid, and a gas is observable to a human. We don't want to believe that the ether is real, and it is. Why? Because people have to justify something other than reality. I don't really know why. But, there's your Trinity: high band, mid band, and low band. Anyway, I'll come back and let this play some more. Just sharing thoughts about what I know to be real today and why it's important that we stop letting these people maintain these conflicts, because it puts a pretty screwed up harmonic imbalance into spaces that we exist in. Once you start to understand that this idea of conflict is what's causing the harm, well, what does the conflict actually mean? You tell me. Listen to this some more and see why it's subjective.
Wave-like charge distributions. Condensed matter physics describes the quantum physics of many atoms together in solids and liquids, and is where many great technologies have come from, like computers, lasers, and quantum information science. Nuclear physics describes how the nucleus of atoms behave and explains radiation, nuclear fission, the splitting of an atom used in our nuclear power plants, and nuclear fusion, which takes place in the sun and will hopefully soon be harnessed here on Earth. Particle physics probes even deeper to find the fundamental subatomic particles that everything is made of, and are described in the standard model of particle physics. And quantum field theory captures...
Who determined what that standard model is? People that get paid to lie to you. That's what the data says. Einstein did not know what he was talking about. We've proven that more than once. I'm going to defend it one more time. He did not know what he was doing at all. He was a victim of the money changers, and while he did some wonderful stuff in his life, this right here proves that he didn't know what he was talking about. His calculations were based on two-dimensional space. And this is in fact what it has to be based upon if you understand the idea of a water drop. This is the only thing that makes any sense today about reality, and of course they suppress that because it unwinds all the recorded history associated with the idea that there's only 9 numbers there. If you understand this formula, then you'll see that it's music. I mean, if you look at it from a pattern perspective, you'll see the waveform. Anyway, I'll continue to keep talking about reality here versus this convoluted stuff that they put out here. And I'm impressed with this guy's ability to organize information. But I think at some point in the near future, based on the quantum switch, the reality of this will become what it is.
Is all of quantum physics and combines it with the special theory of relativity. And it's the best description of the universe we have. Unfortunately, quantum field theory doesn't include gravity, and so physicists don't know how to join together.
Once again, he's defending indoctrination. This is why it doesn't work. There is no valid formula for gravity, so there isn't one. Even that, if you come in and there isn't a valid formula to force of gravity. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Anybody that knows anything about math knows that this gravitational acceleration is bullshit. It's just, what's amazing to me is how many people are thoroughly indoctrinated on it. And by the way, Bing, your search bar tools suck. You have to constantly, you see what, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Every time you want to use it, it puts it down there. Microsoft needs to get out of the computer business because they don't know what they're doing. Anyway, I'll keep going here. I'm just sharing my thoughts. There's no formula sheet here that makes any sense. Not to me, anyway. But it looks impressive, which is what they do. And you're like, well, what does that actually mean? It means nothing. It's a theorem. I could replace those alphanumeric characters or characters, if you will. You go in and you ask yourself, how many characters are there? Or how many symbols are there? How many symbols are there? I mean, they actually want you to believe that they know how many, and they just don't. Because every symbol that you observe, you could mirror, flip, fold, rotate, project into space against another one, and it makes the whole idea of how they document what reality is fake. And I personally believe the reason that it's fake is based on something that people keep calling a conspiracy theory, but the data don't lie. Data just don't lie. It's just, it don't lie at all. Just doesn't lie. And I'm going to go back and continue to defend reality. I mean, if you can't tell that things like this exist, we're better than what we're presenting to be fact. But I do enjoy this man's simplistic view of presentation of material, and I think if he would tweak what he's doing here with the explaining of physics and put more of something that resembles reality, I think he could do wonderful things with teaching if he would go out and talk to this other guy. We talked about the learning anything, If the guy that wrote this and the guy that did the math of physics, if they would get hooked up together um, and then remember the truth of the harmonic frequencies and the simplicity nature of the banding of high band, mid band, low band, 9 octaves, and 9 numbers, I think we'd make additional leaps and bounds in the quantum sphere. He keeps talking about the quantum field theory being, and it's right there in your face. It's all a wave, which means that it's music. I mean, that's the only symbol that makes any sense. And of course, one of the ways that I could make that make sense is I could come in and just for the purpose of demonstration, take and grab a little picture here to show the whole point of it. Integral files, save as, and then leave that there, and then come back and open up a decent way to manipulate an image. Excuse me. It makes sense that I would say this. Just in simple form, the way that you know that there's a truth in it, to the waveform, is if you understand the mathematical plotting of this, assuming that people would see that there's vectored space there. It's presently represented as a raster, but in reality it's coordinates on the screen. So with the reality of doing simple things, of changing the opacity to be able to demonstrate what I'm saying, and then you go and you transform and then flip vertically. Yeah, it doesn't like my ad blocker, I don't really care. Which means it'll probably block my IP from using it, but who cares? But the whole point of how simple the world really is becomes visible when you get rid of the garbage that they've been putting out there. It's just that simple. At what state do you exist in? Let's go to canvas size and come up a little bit here so that this thing makes sense. And you take these and you rotate it again, and then you can reduce it all to reality. They would let you do that. And see, of course, the refresh rate's down because it's not letting me have the I feel stupid all of a sudden because it won't let me do what I want to do because it don't like my ability to get rid of that. It's not a very good example, I suppose, but maybe it is. I'll try it one more time. There it becomes visible when you do it like that. The point is, is by reducing the so-called boundaries of what people observe. Um, you know, there's a spherical waveform that exists in all objects observed. It's basically water drops that are manipulated by sound. If I can be so bold to try to describe what it is I'm seeing. And why does it matter in relationship to what he's talking about? Well, who is he to say that a waveform is only one direction? I mean, we all know in practical terms, if you make a sound, well, the sound has to be a spherical array based on the torus. I mean, you can't deny that. But yet we do. We do it all the time. But this is the only one that makes any sense. It's all sound. Each point observed is emitting that musical frequency that I see. Problem is that when it's came back to reality of being able to reduce the universe to the single clause, which is really apparently offensive to the majority of people who think that the universe really is a clause. Source, origin, destination, use, north, south, east, and west. Anyway, I want that to play again. I just think this is reality. time and show you another perspective on it. We'll come over here and it should let me download it. No, but see, it won't let you do that because it's trying to. Upset everybody and get a copy of it that makes sense. If it'll let me have it. Understanding that everything I do is to try to teach somebody something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, take this file into a program and try to continue to explain what it is I'm talking about. I'll change the name of it. Understanding that I don't make any money off of none of the files that I use to teach people anything, so all these people talk about having files on my machine or doing stuff that they don't want me to do. I don't really care. I just want people to know the truth versus this hype that they're putting out there. This is the best way I know to do that. Use the things that work to help me understand the world that I live in, and I hope other people will do that. I'm sure they do in their own way, but I say we got to get back to the basics of keeping it simple, and this is the best way I know to do this. Put this back up to 4K, and then open it up here a little bit. Close enough for government work is the expression they make. Separate the audio and video so the file don't get too big. Move that up there. Move the empty tracks. Put that up here. And then take it and rotate it. Change the opacity so you can see it. Okay. And then for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll group them together just so it's easier for me to keep up with. And then we'll copy it again. And then we'll rotate it. 90. And we'll put it at 49%. And then we'll detach the canvas. And we'll let that play. And the world becomes visible in a way that we all understand. makes sense. I have to actually complete the version of this to be correct. I didn't complete the model because I was trying to show you one view of it. So we'll go back and we'll ungroup this, understanding we've mirrored it one way. In reality, what we're supposed to do is continue to set it out as a waveform that represents reality of how sound actually emits itself. So in effect, we'd come back and make another copy of it, and then this time you do 180 again, just on the other axis, and then of course you need to set your opacity, because I'm not going to go in and strip out all of the backgrounds, which is what I should do. But for the purpose of this, it'll make even more sense. Now when you look at it, it shows you something a little bit different that's resembling reality. And of course, based on the idea of saying that there's only 9 numbers, you would perform that same function through those 9 layers, and you would have reality that's mappable based on the waveform. So we'll let that one play and see if you can see the difference. I'll group it and then do the rotation one more time so that you can see the importance of what they're saying about this two-dimensional view versus the view of reality. Now when it plays, it should be approaching what we all see, but we don't really pay attention to what we're seeing. So you can see it a little bit bigger. Okay. I'm sure that's not interesting for a lot of people, but it should be. We'll go back and let this guy continue to talk. It's a shame that people with this kind of presentation skills don't have the truth. I just wish that they would.
Quantum physics and the general theory of relativity, leading to the giant chasm of ignorance. One day in the future we hope to close this chasm and come up with a theory of all of physics. We call it quantum gravity.
Well, there we go. They have to maintain their fake narrative. Once again, you cannot show me anything other than reality. There's no such thing as gravity. And that's all I know. And I'll continue to stand on that, which puts me outside of the status quo. And I'm okay being that. Time and space is null, it's fixed. So gravity's an irrelevant thing.
And there are many attempts to do this. Some examples are string theory or loop quantum gravity, and there's many more. But quantum gravity isn't the only thing we observe.
They have to maintain that fake word. You know, it's just wrong. I just think we should say why. It's nothing to do with gravity. It's got to do with math. I'm going to go back over here and defend what I know. Which is an appropriate thing to do, I suppose. They don't want you to know.
We do not have one single accurate or honest world map. And like in all moments of being lost, right before despair takes hold, an unforeseen circumstance arose that set me back on course. I stumbled through thick overgrowth and out into a moonlit clearing with a small lake. At this clearing I met a mysterious figure named Sturgios. I told him I was lost, and he told me to come and look into the lake. He told me to watch the water. What did I see, he asked. Myself, I replied, my reflection rippling and glistening in the moonlight. Mirror, mirror, look beyond yourself, he said. What do you see? And there it was, just as it had always been. Mirror, mirror, way up high. Mirror, mirror, in the sky. Mirror, mirror, oh how they lie.
to show that again. Going back to this physics guy, I wish someone would tell him to connect with this other boy and do something normal to help kids. Nobody talks to me, so I can only broadcast and say what I'm thinking here. It's a very simple idea. It's this guy that created this, and he's on GitHub. If he would just connect with the right team of people, I think, and the world could be a really cool place to see. They're doing all this stuff with this. He's needing money to do stuff. And I've tried to communicate with him so he doesn't have to worry about costs, but I can't never get a hold of him. It's open source, but he's really a cool guy, and I think people need to pay attention to him. If this guy and the rest of these people would collaborate with this guy over here under this domain of science, and then they would pay attention to the other stuff that's in this video, I think we could make leaps and bounds into closing what he's calling the chasm of ignorance. It's pretty arrogant that he would think this way. Ignorance means a lack of knowledge, and it's not anything other than an intentional thing by the money changers, in my opinion. So, if anybody's understanding what I'm saying here, the collaborative nature of the internet would be something very simple. Can you allow people to overcome their own ignorance? Well, you could spend your whole life studying a single topic and never know it all. But what really matters? I think this is the future. I think this is how it's going to be, the ability to allow people to see reality on their terms versus somebody else's. It's a very wonderful interface he's put together here. If we could just convince him to get rid of his damn shopping cart and continue to pin it to other data depositories, I think the world would be a lot better, if my opinion matters. I'm not sure that it does, but I think it should. I think all of these science and technology people out there and these government-funded programs needs to pay attention to these people. In no way, shape, or form have I communicated with any of them. I just didn't sit back and watch them. It's people like him that's gonna let things be what it is. You know, these people here that are working on reality. My only complaint about the guy is he's stuck in the world of Macintosh, and I'm thinking, how do I get him away from Macintosh and into the real computing world? But I don't know, it's really frustrating to want to talk to people that, I mean, you can't ever get a hold of them. It's kids like this that are going to make the difference in the world that we live in. I really do believe that. So if anybody out there knows these people, then you should devote some time and energy to what they're doing. That's my personal and professional opinion. He's got a view of the world that is going to lend itself to unraveling a lot more of the so-called hidden knowledge, or what the other guy called this chasm of ignorance. shopping cart is the most oppressive thing that's ever been stuck out there, and having developed the original prototype for it and watched it put out in the wild and taken over, it's just annoying to see people continue to monetize people's thoughts. This guy should have unlimited resources and be able to do what he wants to do because he's figured it out. He understands the importance of reality. At least that's my opinion. So I guess I'd owe him a little broadcast here today. Maybe I'll come back. But if anybody knows these people, then reach out to them and let them understand they're on the right track, in my opinion, after 50 years of watching the world go by. Once again, the goal in what I'm doing here is to say that learning-anything.xyz and this domain of science, if they could somehow get together into an environment that says, you know what, forget what you think you know and look at reality based on what we showed you. If they can merge the reality of what is, the momentum of what is will overcome the momentum of what isn't. And the ability to teach yourself at your own pace, it clearly works. At least been the experience of my life that it's worked that way. Because we really do need answers for why stuff like this happened. And we don't need it for us, we need it for the next generation. Continuing to rely upon fake theories, allow people to monetize other people's view of the world is ridiculous. However, in my personal opinion, it all comes back to reality. So that would be the end of my screed today. Assuming I can remember where to turn it off at. I think that would be all that matters. Thank you for listening. Hope you learned something.